Welcome, everyone. I'm Melissa Joles, Director of Marketing for RDA. I'd like to give you a brief introduction of who we are. RDA is a group of independent PBE distributors throughout the United States. Our goal is to provide our members and their collision shop customers marketing and sales support. We're glad to have you with us today, and to find out more about RDA, you can go to our website at www.rda-impact.com. Frank Terlep, founder and CEO of Auto Techcelerators, is your presenter for today's webinar on more disruptions the collision industry will face in 2020 and beyond. The presentation will take approximately 60 minutes. We are recording it and we'll post it on our YouTube channel. If you have questions during the webinar, you can type them in the chat box at the bottom right of your screen, and Frank will answer them at the end of the presentation. Now, I'll turn it over to Frank.
Well, thanks, Melissa, and welcome everybody. I hope you're having a great middle of the week weekend on a Wednesday, and hopefully you are surviving this crazy time that we all live in. Anyway, so what I'm going to talk about today are a couple of things. Number one, I want to review some of the previous disruptions I covered in a previous RDA webinar earlier this year, and then I'm also going to talk about what other disruptions we can expect, our industry can expect going forward in the next years ahead of us, okay? So today, what you're going to walk away with is I'm going to talk about how COVID-19, in my opinion, has permanently changed many aspects of our collision repair industry. I'm going to talk about why and how OEMs will become much more involved in the collision repair industry, how EVs, telematics, and connected cars will change the industry, how artificial intelligence will disrupt the industry, and last but not least, I'm going to talk about how ADAS is changing the way vehicles are and will need to be repaired. And at the end, obviously, I'll open up for Q&A. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this side. I've been in the business for many, many years. I was lucky to get started in this business back in 1984 with an angel investment. I helped develop the first Windows-based estimating, Windows-based shop management system, built the first parts procurement platform back in the late 90s. I built the industry's first mobile app, industry's first digital marketing platform, and I also, my most recent activity was designing the industry's leading remote scanning and calibration platform. Today, I'm a published author of a book. Also launched a company called Auto Techcelerators, and my new company has launched the Test Drive Copilot platform we think is going to change the way test drives are performed, managed, and documented. And we're getting ready to release Calibration Copilot, a new platform to help businesses manage and document ADAS calibrations. You can reach me at any of these places via email, via my mobile number, via the websites that are up here. You can go on Facebook or you can go on LinkedIn. You can reach me at any one of these. So if you want to reach out to me, feel free to go to any of these places on the web or call me, text me. I'll look forward to responding to you. You can get my book at autodisruption.com or at amazon.com. And if you do purchase the paperback, I donate $5 for every paperback to the Collision Industry Foundation. So if you want to learn about industry disruption, go out and get yourself a book. So previously, in the previous webinar we did with Melissa and the RDA and the group, we talked about how COVID-19, it was just at the beginning of the COVID-19 virus, and we talked about how it was going to change the industry. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that today. We also talked about the digitalization of the automobile. Basically, the automobile is turning into a computer on wheels. And so we talked about how that is really going to change everything that we've come to know about the industry itself. I also talked about why it was so critical for businesses to become digital themselves and implement technology to compete and win. If you're not keeping up with your business technology, you're going to fall behind as a business owner, and that's not a good thing. And then we talked about how and why digital intermediaries were getting between the consumer and the shops. A digital intermediary such as an OEM repair network program, a DRP program, et cetera, et cetera. And we talked about that as well. Last but not least, in the last session, we talked about why M&A and consolidation was not going to go away. And I'm going to cover a little bit more about that today because it's actually increasing in nature. By the way, I believe this webinar is on the RDA YouTube channel, and so you can go back and review this on their channel.
It is.
Great, Melissa, that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about COVID-19 today and tomorrow in our industry. On the left, you're going to see some bullet points. I won't go through them in great detail. GDP took a major hit. There's still tens of millions receiving unemployment. New auto sales are down. On the other hand, you can't find used cars. The price of used cars have gone through the roof. The estimation today is by end of year, 13 million new cars will be sold. Vehicle miles, depending on where you're at, are up or down. Overall, 10% down across the country. I can tell you here, where I live in Southern California, it is not as crowded on the roads as it used to be. And part of that, in my opinion, is the work at home business is not going away. It's here to stay. That's going to dramatically, in my opinion, it's going to dramatically affect miles driven. Also, e-commerce, buying on Amazon, buying your food online and getting it delivered. That's going to cut down on the number of trips people are taking as well. So I don't know if we're ever going to get back up to the miles driven that we hit before COVID, but again, you don't know. I feel really bad for the small businesses, particularly your local gyms, barbershops, restaurants. They're just getting crushed in some parts of the country. Feel really bad for them. On the other hand, and again, I'm not a doctor and I did not sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night, but as far as I can hear and I see, there's hundreds of vaccines and therapeutic trials going on. So my guess is something's going to occur with regard to a therapeutic or a vaccine sometime here before the end of the year. So that's what's going on in the world that we live in. Oh, by the way, if you haven't heard, according to Putin, Russia got the first vaccine, but it's not fully tested. Anyway, with all that said, when it comes to our industry, God, everything's been canceled. SEMA's canceled, CIC is canceled, going to be virtual, blah, 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 everything, all the regional shows, gone. So, we're all living a virtual life. I believe our industry and the insurance industries have been changed forever. I've been on a couple of insurance conferences, virtual conferences, and a couple of things that jump out for both collision and insurance. Number one, technology, whether we like it or not, is going to be implemented in this industry much faster than planned. They're jumping the curve in terms of virtual and touchless claims processes. You're going to see much more technology come down through the insurance platforms than you've ever seen happen in a really short period of time. Talked about the virtual and touchless claims. I believe these new sanitation processes that are now being implemented or are implemented in our industry are going to be standard operating procedures going forward. You're just going to, that's the way you are going to repair vehicles going forward. I believe pickup and delivery is going to become a standard operating procedure as well, or offering. And whether we like it or not, imaging and video-based estimating of supplements is here to stay. Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it accurate? Is it not accurate? I'm not here to argue any of that. I just know that from a technological perspective, that is not going away. It will increase dramatically. And as part of that, I think artificial intelligence is going to be a big player. And we're going to spend a good bit of time on artificial intelligence in today's session and give you an understanding of what it really is. So I'll kind of take back the curtain to the Wizard of Oz to kind of give you an idea of what really artificial intelligence is. From a distribution perspective and in general, e-commerce platforms are going through the roof. I mean, if you're in the e-commerce business or you have an e-commerce platform, you're sitting pretty right now. I believe Amazon and other online platforms in this are going to get into this industry, and they're going to increase their market share, and they're going to increase the competitive scenario within this marketplace. I also believe you're going to see bidding platforms and online marketplaces increase in our industry. Bidding platforms for materials, bidding platforms for allied materials, et cetera, et cetera. I also see in here that right now value-added services are being replaced by managing costs and expenses. And I foresee that moving forward down the path as well. And then last but not least, M&A is going to continue. I just read an article. I'm just going to pull it up. It's in the Auto Body News, and it talks about a little history of, originally it was Gerber and Boyd and Service King, and then Abra bought Cooks and then sold to Caliber, et cetera, et cetera. Well, now you've got Gerber and Caliber and Service King. Service King, not so much. Gerber and Caliber continue to their M&A activities. Matter of fact, I think Gerber's bought between 20 and 25 businesses this year alone. Crash Champions, based on private equity from a private equity firm, has launched an acquisition in California of Pacific Elite. Former Abra CTO is now the CEO of Classic Collision based out of Atlanta, and they're now up to, I believe, almost 41 locations. Joe Hudson's over 125. Chilton in California has 12 locations today, but just brought on Chris Abraham, the former CEO of Service King, and a group of executives to increase M&A there. And then, your franchisees, franchisors, driven brands, and then banner groups, One Collision and CSN merged. So you're going to see this continue. In the last session we did, again, go see the video on the RDA's YouTube channel. I talked about service businesses getting squeezed in the middle, and you got big and you got small, and the middle goes away. I think that's going to be a reality in our world. I think the independents are going to be part of something bigger, whether it's a franchise, whether they sell, whether they become part of a banner, whatever the case may be, or a repair network like CCG. So this is going to continue for as long as I'm in the business. So now what I'd like to talk about is why and how OEMs will get much more involved in the collision industry over time. As you already probably know, the OEMs really started to get more involved with their position statements with regard to scanning, and it went on in parts and so on and so forth. So let's talk about why they're doing it, and then a little later I'm going to talk about how they're going to do it and how they're going to disrupt the business. Well, the reason why is simple. It's big dollars for them, number one, and number two, it's brand affection. So the two reasons they're going to get much more involved in our industry is big dollars and brand affection. Let's talk about big dollars. I think we all know on this call, I think most of us know that today a used car sales twice as profitable as a new car sale. Number one. Number two is, parts margins for the dealers and the OEs are big at 50%. And for those dealer groups that are in the business, they do very well. The top 50 dealer groups today are generating over $1 billion in annual sales. Those are groups like Hendricks, Berkshire, Penske, Sonic, AutoNation, et cetera, et cetera. But there's 50 groups that make up that $1 billion in annual sales. Now, also, since 2003, the OEs have lost more than 12 billion. That's right, billion with a B, in part sales, because 35% of repairs being done on vehicles today are non-OEM parts. Okay, we're going to talk a bit more about that. And also, the OEs are missing, in their opinion, more than 66 billion in underperformed service work annually. So again, big dollars at stake in terms of the business. Now, the other reason is brand affection. Huge brand affection when it comes to claims experience and switching vehicles or brands. 61% of consumers switch vehicles within 12 months after a poor claims experience. 60% of those switch brands. Also, 87% of collision repairs performed in non-certified facilities, which means 11 million consumers that have their vehicles repaired are repaired in a non-OEM certified facility, which means the OEMs have no contact with that consumer whatsoever. So what does this mean with regard to brand affection? Well, it means literally over 160 billion in losses with regard to brand affection costs. And part of that reason is obviously we just talked about the vehicles, the parts, the vehicles being repaired in non-OEM certified facilities, but our collision repair ecosystem, the insurers, the aftermarket parts business, et cetera, they have different agendas than the OEs do, right? And the OEs also believe that the claims process as it stands today, again, we're going to cover more of this later, is complex and inefficient, which negatively affect their brand. So this is why they're getting into our business much more than they have been in the past. Next, let's talk about how EVs, electric vehicles, telematics, and the connected car are going to change the entire industry, okay? And I'm going to start out with EVs first. The automakers, all of the automakers for the most part are committed to a big future of EVs. Tesla obviously is the leader in that market today, but as you can see by this graph on the right-hand side of your screen, there's going to be a ton of new EVs in the market very, very soon. I mean, if you look at in 2030 at the top, VW wants their entire 300 car lineup electrified. So this ain't going away. This ain't going away. Rivian's going to launch next year, I believe in the spring, or maybe later this year, their truck, which is at the top. Rivian's making a lot of hiring decisions right now regarding collision, regarding our collision industry. So again, big influx of EVs. You know, and based on one consulting company, they expect there to be 500 models, EV models, by 2022. That's in 2 years. That's in 2 years. And by 2040, 54 million of them on the road. So you can see the dramatic spike from 2020 to 2025. And I firmly believe you're going to see that. And one of the reasons why is the cost of batteries. I mean, in 2019 alone, the cost of batteries has gone down by 13%, and it's gone down by 87% from 2010 to 2019. So as the cost of batteries go down, the cost of these vehicles go down. And when they continue to go down, they become, from a pricing perspective, equivalent to an internal combustion vehicle, okay? And as the battery capacity and the drive limits increase, more and more people are going to move to EVs. More and more people are going to move to EVs. I just saw something online in passing that I think Lucid through a test crossed the 400-mile barrier. And then I guess sometime next month, you know, Tesla's supposed to have a battery day that's going to announce, quote unquote, a million-mile battery. So again, this is the big cost of EVs here. And as this goes down, the sales are going to go up. Another thing that's going to dramatically affect our repairs, manufacturing, I go through the list, right? So you look on the left, and you look at an internal combustion engine, you look on the right, you look at an EV motor. And so you start to look at the number of parts in these vehicles, and they're dramatically different, dramatically different. It's going to affect parts manufacturing. It's going to affect vehicle manufacturing. It's going to affect part sales. It's going to affect the way vehicles are repaired, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, it's going to offer other opportunities as well. But just because of the number of parts alone, dramatic effect in many aspects of the business. For example, let's talk about the factory. An EV factory requires 30% less labor hours to build an electric vehicle. On the other hand, an internal combustion factory requires 50% more factory space than an EV factory. So when you start to look at this transition from internal combustion engines to electrical vehicles, you got major challenges in the unions, in the factories, et cetera, et cetera. So I also think because of that, you're going to see a bunch of new vehicles enter the market, manufacturers enter the market as well. I'm going to play a little video here, and it's going to show you real quickly. This is from Faraday, another electric vehicle maker. You know how they're constructing these EVs and the parts associated with it. So let's take a little look here.
To achieve a diverse range of smart, fully connected electric vehicles, Faraday Future engineers have developed a new, innovative variable platform architecture. We started from the ground up with a new battery structure that's arranged into what we call strings. Adding or removing these strings both changes overall battery capacity and allows us to develop new wheelbases. Other than crumple zones, which are optimized in each specific configuration for safety, the front and rear sections remain the same. The FF platform also incorporates various motor configurations, ranging from 1 to 3, or with special modifications, 4 motor layouts. We are able to alter vehicle characteristics, including 2 or all-wheel drive systems, extended range options, and various power outputs, all using the same platform architecture. By fitting our vehicles with the latest in internet connectivity, we'll maximize the capabilities and experience of our state-of-the-art user interface. Plus, they come pre-equipped for increasing levels of autonomous driving and improved safety. This intelligent, modular approach, built on a flexible battery layout and multiple powertrain configurations, means we have the potential to deliver an extremely diverse range of vehicles to market, faster and more efficiently than previously thought possible.
So, by the way, that's an example, but GM's following the same process. All the EV manufacturers are looking at the platform as a key component of their strategy going forward. So how will EVs disrupt our industry? As I mentioned earlier, OE factories and suppliers will change dramatically. Most of your tier 1, tier 2 suppliers now have started moving away from what I would call traditional parts to much more of electronics. You're going to see new manufacturers, Rivians, Lucid, et cetera, et cetera. Over time, dealer service volume could decline by as much as 35% because your service requirements go way down, parts go way down. But on the other hand, tire replacement will increase because you're going to have a longer life of the vehicles, and glass and visibility services are going to increase as well with EVs. Oil changes, brake replacements are virtually going to disappear. Virtually disappear, right? No oil change in EV, and brakes use to regenerate. EVs use regenerative brakes. You say that really quickly multiple times. So that's going to go away. So what happens to your 10-minute oil changes, right? In your brake shops. But electronics repair will increase dramatically. And so will repair and diagnostic processes change. Calibrations are going to go through the roof. I think new and aftermarket part sales. Remember, much less number of parts in an EV than an ICE vehicle. And the length of ownership is going to dramatically change in terms of owner of an EV. So lots of changes and lots of disruptions in our industry when these EVs start to increase dramatically. All right, let's move on to telematics. Most of you who have a new car have telematics in your vehicle. And also, most of the vehicles today and over the last 5 years are connected in one way, shape, or form. You're gonna hear statistics later that's gonna surprise you. So I'm gonna talk about next telematics and the connected car and how they're going to dramatically disrupt their business. So let's start with telematics. So again, you heard me say it earlier. Cars today and going in the future are computers on wheels. You start to look at telematics, and there's really 4 main areas of a telematics platform. I'm going to start at the top in the green. You've got a productivity component, which you can talk about geofencing, trip history, dispatching, asset tracking, roadside assistance, and gamification. Productivity related to fleets, okay? So from a telematics perspective, fleets love telematics. Moving to the right to safety, telematics, in-vehicle feedback, driver scorecards, advanced collision prevention, fatigue and distraction monitoring, weather hazards, driver behaviors, cameras, seatbelt usage, accident detection. Again, telematics are going to play a key role in the safety components of a vehicle and our industry. Moving down to the yellow, fleet optimization, fuel consumption, idling trends, route optimization, engine DTCs, hybrid and EV status data, predictive maintenance, predicting what maintenance those vehicles are going to need, and obviously remote diagnostics, diagnosing that vehicle remotely. And again, not only in the auto industry, it's going to affect the truck industry as well. Next, telematics in the red, compliance. Again, for fleet perspective, electronic logs goes away, your emissions you're tracking, vehicle inspections electronically being done, temperature monitoring, again, from a compliance perspective. And then last but not least, the ability to expand on the telematics within the vehicle. You'll have mobile apps connected to it, online marketplaces connected to it, so consumers will be able to purchase things through telematics. Big data, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Integration with other platforms through open APIs and software development kits. So telematics is going to play a key role as the vehicle moves forward in terms of connectivity, safety, et cetera, et cetera. Another thing it's going to play well with is over-the-air updates. Again, Tesla's been doing this for many, many years, but most of your OEMs today are moving to this type of solution, where they'll be updating their vehicles, adding features, communicating with the consumer over the air, via the internet, via those computers in the vehicles. This is going to be a big deal going forward. Now, all this means, what this means is those vehicles are data generators. They're huge data generators. Lots and lots of data generated by this telematics and connected car. So here's an example of a connected car today in terms of what data is being generated compared to what we all are used to with regard to our typical data usage with our computers and our phones. On the left, you see 25,000 megabytes a day being generated by a connected car, compared to 15 megabytes web browsing, 29 megabytes music streaming, all the stuff that our kids are doing. So today's connected cars are huge data generators. So what is this data going to be used for? Well, one of the things that it's going to be used for is for insurance. If you think about what we've lived through here since March, is all of these major rebates from State Farm, all the insurance companies have given their customers rebates or refunds, rebates, refunds, whatever you want to call it, on insurance. But if they had the driving data, they wouldn't have to worry about it. They'd be able to pay as you drive or pay how you drive or charge how you drive. And that's going to be one of the things this telematics and these connected cars do. It's going to provide data to the OEMs and the insurance companies to help with insurance, with marketing, with underwriting, with renewals, claims, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one of the things that data is going to be used for. Now, next up, I found this video. This is a short little video about GM, and I want you to listen really closely at the beginning. This is about GM today with regard to data and connected cars. So let's get started. Did you hear that? 10 million connected vehicles.
So many of the challenges and issues coming about with privacy, we're trying to craft the language and be purposeful about that. Licensing implies that there's legal, there's information security, there's privacy. Monetizing or selling sound like, well, anybody come buy data, right? And that's not what we're doing. We just want to be completely transparent so that people say, okay, yeah, I don't mind being shared because I'm getting some good out of it, they're getting some good out of it, and we can both win. As we get more electric vehicles, we're helping that department identify where to place charging stations based upon driving patterns and congestion and those sorts of things. So using insights about how people drive can be very useful. In areas like Detroit, potholes are terrible, particularly in the winter. And what if we were to offer as part of our OnStar, hey, watch out, there's a pothole on your left lane. So this is just yet another way that we can use information in an anonymized fashion to help customers. And that's doing the public some good with the data.
So, how many of you who are on the call knew that GM was collecting data from 10 million vehicles? Probably not many. Anyway, so data. So this is why what you're seeing the OEMs do, all the OEMs now are working with third-party companies or internally to create their own operating systems for their vehicles. So think of a manufacturer operating system like Microsoft operating system, the Mac operating system, the Linux operating system. Well, the manufacturers, each of the manufacturers, again, are either A, building their own or working with a third party to create their own. So they're building this so they can handle all the data. They're building these platforms so they can handle all the data. And what data will they use? Well, lots. Demographics, geographics, driving data, environmental data coming from the sensors, driver and passenger data. The car's going to generate an FNOL. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. It's going to measure severity, policy and claim info, liability, fraud. It's going to be able to tell the shop, here's the consumer, here's the certified repairers in your marketplace. It's going to connect or be able to connect with local towing glass sublet providers. It's going to be able to determine the parts requirements, whether it's predictive maintenance or in accidents, and more. So vehicle data is going to be like our world's new oil. It's going to be critical in going forward with regard to the way our industry is getting disrupted. And it's also going to create huge business opportunities. Here's an example of one, I don't know, 200 or 300 different businesses that are being built around connected cars, infotainment, car sharing, delivery, EV charge. You could look at the list. So while EVs and connected cars are going to negatively affect some parts of our industry, it's going to create huge opportunities for companies and startups and existing companies that understand how to take advantage and participate in this new business landscape. So huge opportunities going forward with regard to connected cars. So what I want to show you here now is a little video. This comes from Microsoft. And this is going to show you this third party, how a third party like Microsoft is working with manufacturers to create this data platform.
The automotive industry is going through a massive transformation driven by breakthrough digital technologies. Connected and autonomous vehicles, along with smart mobility services like Uber, are coming together to power this transformation. Microsoft's connected vehicle platform allows car makers to seamlessly integrate the car to the digital life of their customers and deliver a set of experiences that are safe, productive, and fun.
Imagine your car alerting you to a problem. Beyond just through a notification, it can connect through the platform to a set of service providers, and through Cortana, schedule a meeting with you automatically based on your availability and the availability of the service provider. What we're talking about is cutting-edge connected car solutions. The Microsoft Connected Vehicle Platform, there's really 5 key areas of capability that we've identified: telematics and predictive services, customer engagement and insight, in-car productivity, connected ADAS support, and advanced and contextual navigation. Automakers want customization, differentiation. They want to be able to have a connected car platform that represents their brand and their identity in the space. As a platform provider, we enable automakers to take those capabilities and create new, unique, and differentiated experiences.
Microsoft is here to partner with automakers to help them accelerate their own transformation to being digital businesses and deliver to their customers connected and smart mobility services on a global scale.
So there's an example of Microsoft working with OEMs to create a platform to digitize the vehicle, make it a connected vehicle, and also include telematics. You saw that in their video. So what does that mean in terms of first notice of loss? Well, you're about to see that. So today, our existing first notice of loss in general, okay, looks like this. Accident, you can look at this, right? Call the insurer, find the shop, schedule the estimate, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's what our first notice of loss looks like today. What's going to happen is with these connected cars and these connected platforms, it's going to dramatically change the first notice of loss, where the vehicle will be the one placing the first notice of loss, and for the most part, at a high level, generating an estimate based on the damage to the vehicle at the accident scene. So it's going to dramatically shorten the process that exists today. And all of us are saying, oh my God, what am I going to do? Well, if you're the consumer, I want you to think about this. If the consumer is the center of the world, the consumer would love this. They don't want to have to go through all those steps. The consumer will love this. And so by the way, the OEMs are going to love this as well, because with their telematics, they can make sure that a vehicle goes to a certified repair facility. Or they'll know up front if that vehicle is a total loss. And if it is a total loss, boom, I now can turn that customer over to one of my dealers. So again, remember I talked about that $166 billion in defection dollars. So this is going to be one of those processes that you're going to see happen. Now we're going to see happen tomorrow? Nope. But it is going to happen, mark my words. So how are the OEMs going to change our industry? They're going to use vehicle data to increase their revenue. They're going to use data to reduce brand defection. They will use data to reduce unperformed or underperformed service. They will use data to partner with insurers to provide insurance and claim services to their customers. They will use data to market to their customers. They will use data and repairer certification. Hold on a second here. And repair certification to improve customer claims experience and improve repair quality. They'll also use data and metrics to measure their certified network members. And last but not least, I believe they will continue and increase restricting parts procurements based on the certification of their repair facilities. So that's, in my opinion, how I believe OEs are going to change our industry. Now let's talk about how artificial intelligence is going to change our business, okay? Because it will, and you're going to see it's going to change it dramatically. So what is artificial intelligence? Well, it started in the 50s, and now we're sitting here in the 2020s, and you start to talk about deep learning, machine learning. I'm going to show you a real quick video here that's going to explain to you what artificial intelligence is. And I love this little video because it's really explanatory. So let's go ahead. Okay, short video. Hopefully, again, I'm not trying to make you an expert in artificial intelligence, but I just want to make sure you understand the terminology. And when you hear AI, when you talk about pattern recognition, computer vision, you understand what it really means. So, how will it disrupt the automotive industry? Well, here's an example of what Qualcomm's working on inside the vehicle. Natural language, voice speech, voice noise, location, face detection, fingerprint detection, et cetera, et cetera. So again, this is some of the AI that Qualcomm is bringing into the inside of the vehicle. So how will AI disrupt our industry? Well, auto manufacturing, AI is being used everywhere. AI is a key component of our ADAS advanced driver assist systems. Key component of autonomous vehicles. AI is critical to advanced mapping, which is critical to autonomous vehicles. AI cloud services for preventive maintenance and personalized marketing. Insurance and claims, risk assessment, DIY auto claims, total loss processes, appraisal processes, all affected by artificial intelligence. In-car monitoring, driver identification, recognition, and monitoring. In-car infotainment, again, being driven by AI. And how about the auto body shop? Well, you saw me talk about earlier, first notice of loss to instant notice of loss. Automatic assignments, estimating processes, blueprinting, all of these processes that we're doing today in our industry are going to be affected in one way, shape, or form by artificial intelligence. Now, what I want to do for you here, show you a short video on AI and estimating. Now, again, what you're going to see is a AI-based estimating process out of our country, but it doesn't mean it won't work within our country. So take a look.
With a simple series of photos that the customer uploads following the accident, done via their mobile phone. Via the app, guides the customer through which photos to take. And as you can see on the screen, capturing all the different elements of the damage to the vehicle. Quickly breaks down the repair operations, panel by panel, in real time. So here we're going to see what actually happens in the back end. Now let's see the AI in action. Now, I'm going to pause to make sure that we are able to actually follow the speed of the AI. Here, this is just the step one. So as you've seen in a few seconds, the AI has gone through the photos that were received from the policyholder. And as a first step, it's identified all the key parts that are present on the pictures with no other input than the photos themselves. Now, obviously, it doesn't stop here. The next step is where the expertise of the AI really kicks in. We're going to now ask the AI to go to the photo one more time, look at the damage severity, and tell us what are the right repair operations, just like a car appraiser. I'm going to pause again. Here's step two. The AI has gone through those images, and it's already assessed 4 parts: the front bumper, the bonnet, the front right wing, and the grille. So if we zoom in on the front bumper, the AI has looked at the damage and has decided that A, the part has to be replaced, B, it's given us a breakdown of the labor hours that are needed to repeat the part and to paint it. And finally, it's pulled from industry partners the price of the part, here 287 pounds. And it keeps going like that, over and over again, part by part. Which parts are present, you know, what's the right repair operation, what's the labor time needed to fit the part, any blend or paint work necessary, and the associated cost, until the full estimate is ready. This is a technological breakthrough. All of the complex manual tasks that are normally carried out by the appraiser can now be done in a few seconds. Now, if you take a step back, this is an AI that has learned to understand claims just like an expert. It has seen millions of cases, and it's now able to make sense of damages to thousands of parts, regardless of the car model and regardless of how it's being photographed. It has become truly universal.
So again, there's a lot of controversy related to photo-based estimating, AI estimating. As I said earlier, whether we like it or not, this is going to be driven into our industry for many reasons. Number one, the consumer wants to control their process. So if you can give the consumer, whether they're good or bad, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but if the consumer's involved up front by taking photos and they get feedback back at that time, that's good for them. Second of all, you're going to see this affect total losses. If I could use AI, using photos to determine total loss, it's going to shorten that process and the cost of that process dramatically. Now, also, when you start to talk about this type of AI, how accurate is it? I don't know how accurate it is in the estimating world, but when you go outside of the estimating world, our industry, when you start talking about pattern recognition, image recognition, it's proven that AI is more accurate in recognition of patterns and of images than a human being is. I am not, again, I'm going to repeat, I am not saying that technology like this today is more accurate than a human being, but I will tell you this type of technology, if I were shop, I would use that to shorten the amount of time it takes to get to the detailed blueprint so I could get the more detail quicker. Anyway, so that's what you're going to see with regard to AI and estimating. I want to hit the last area is how ADAS is going to change the way vehicles are repaired. So if you're a repairer or you're service repairers, or if you bought a new car, you need to be, or you already are familiar with ADAS. Because in 2022, which is 2 model years away, 97% of all vehicles are going to have ADAS, period. Okay, today, there's about 60 million vehicles on the road that have ADAS, some type of ADAS technology today. If you just take the expected sales numbers between 2020 and 2025. By 2025, there'll be 131 million vehicles on the road that have ADAS-based technology. Today, somewhere between 40 and 45% of the vehicle park. So it's here to stay. It's gonna be throughout all aspects of our business. And what does that mean? Well, you look at this vehicle and you say, well, where in this vehicle can there be damage and not affect an electronic sensor? Well, you can't, for the most part. So if there's damage to a vehicle, an ADAS equipped vehicle, connected car vehicle, there's a good possibility there's going to be damage to the electronics. And when you start to talk about ADAS, you've got radar, you've got LiDAR, you've got cameras, you've got short range radar, medium range radar, ultrasound. All of those technologies are going to be or are in vehicles. And so these technologies need to be calibrated. In some cases, they're dynamically calibrated, which means the vehicle is driven. And in other cases, they're statically calibrated, which means targets are used to relearn the sensor back to vehicle specifications. Okay? Now, as part of this ADAS, the bulletproof file becomes critical, in my opinion, because you can't see electronic damage. I can see physical damage. I can visually inspect physical damage, but you start to look at, well, what do I need to worry about? Well, here's what I tell shops today. If you're repairing vehicles today, you need to document that repair as if you're going to court tomorrow for that vehicle. And that means everything you do on that vehicle should be documented, and you should be creating a bulletproof file. Now, with that said, there's two new repair requirements that shops are going to have to deal with. One's calibrations, the other are test drives. Again, I've been in the business for 40 years. I was a mechanic before that. I remember in the 70s doing brake jobs and alignments, and my boss made me do test drives. I'm shocked at the number of repair facilities that do not do test drives today, but that's a different conversation. Let's talk about new repair requirements. Last week, the Auto Glass Safety Council released the first checklist of its kind called the ADAS recalibration checklist. I strongly suggest that if you haven't seen this, you could send me an email, you could text me, I'll send it to you. But this is a checklist they're recommending to all their Glass Safety Council members on what needs to be done before, during, and after a calibration. If you are a shop and you are performing and or you're subletting, this is what you should be working through on every ADAS vehicle that needs a calibration, period, in my opinion. But that's your decision. So let's talk about calibrations. In this case, I'm going to talk about static calibrations. So you can start to see, this is a picture from the web of a calibration system that's very typical of the most, okay? But you can start to see, wait a minute, man, there's a whole bunch to this. There's mats, there's targets, there's lasers, there's wheel clamps, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're going to be in the business, you're going to need an equipment like this or like this. And what that means is, with the equipment, also the targets are going to change. So the guess is you're going to be in the business of buying new targets every year based on new sensors or new ADAS related technology. Okay. You're also got to consider space. You also need to consider space. Okay. There's some spaces that could be as much as 37 feet front or rear on some calibrations. Obviously, you also need to consider the fact that the platform, the ground needs to be flat. So the question becomes, for repairers, do I take up a bay and a half of productive auto body or refinish or reassembly stalls and create a calibration bay, or do I sublet it to a third party? That's going to, in my opinion, that's going to be the major decision that repairers are going to have to make. I was mentioning to Melissa earlier, is I think if I were a distributor, a paint distributor, and I was servicing shops, I would meet with my shops, find out what their plans for calibrations, and if they're not going to do it, I'd consider building a calibration facility for my customers, to service my customers, to make money, and to let them make money on sublet. Hint of advice. Now, what's the opportunity? Well, in my opinion, opportunity, like I said, you got 60 million vehicles in 2020. You're going to have 131 million in 2025. By 2025, I think it's going to be $1 billion business. So that's what the calibration business looks like from my perspective. So, but what type of documentation do you need? Well, in my opinion, you're going to need documentation that documents photos, that documents time and date stamps when people do things, that captures all the documentation from the scan tools, et cetera, and you're going to need a way to bill for it. So again, calibration documentation is going to be critical. It's going to be needed to be in the cloud and available to anybody. So that's what I'm talking about in calibrations. Let's talk about test drives. Okay, and I always ask this question: is a vehicle properly and safely repaired if all of the systems, physical and electronic, are not tested and validated via test drive after repair is completed? I know what the answer is, in my opinion. What's the answer to you? Again, I said earlier, I'm shocked at the number of facilities that do not perform proper test drives. And what is a proper test drive? Well, proper test drive depends on the vehicle. Depends on the vehicle system. So here's a list of some vehicle ADAS systems. Every one of these systems are different. Every one of them need to be tested differently. They operate differently. They kick in at different speeds, et cetera, et cetera. Here's an example of 3 test drive requirements for a Mazda, Ford, and Subaru. These are all the systems that need to be tested post-repair, post-calibration test drive to ensure they work. And let me ask you a question. If you haven't tested them, how do you know they work? Just because you calibrated a sensor does not mean that sensor is calibrated properly. 1 degree off laterally at 75 miles an hour only gives a vehicle 100 feet to react, a vehicle sensor 100 feet to react to a vehicle. So what you want to consider is our Test Drive Copilot platform, which gives you documentation of what was done. It gives you how to do it, and also gives you the ability to bill for your test drives. So again, we give you the documentation to support and educate you on what your people should do during their test drives, and then we give you the documentation for you to be able to bill for your work that you performed during that test drive. So again, why? Document the test drive, document to get reimbursement, document to reduce your liability, documentation for a bulletproof file. We provide you with the requirements by make and by test drive, and it gives you the ability to manage your cost and your quality control. All right, there you have it. Big overview on several different disruptions that are going to happen in our industry. You can visit our Test Drive Copilot information at testdrivecopilot.com. You can check out our soon-to-be-released calibration copilot at calcopilot.com. You can get my book at autodisruption.com or Amazon. And remember, I'm donating $5 for every paperback back to the collision industry. And last but not least, again, you can reach me at any of these places at any time. Best way for me is typically either email or text. So there you have it in 59 minutes, Melissa, less than 1 hour.
There you go. Well, we have a question.
Perfect.
All right. Do you see OEs providing insurance through their own resources, such as self-insurance, eliminating the insurance companies we currently see on our landscape, like State Farm and Allstate, et cetera?
Well, I can't predict the future. I mean, I know Tesla's done it. Porsche's trying it, I believe. From my perspective, I see it a little differently. I see the OEM manufacturers partnering with insurance companies. I see dealerships. There's already companies out there that are playing the middle person between dealerships and insurance companies so the dealer can offer insurance policies at the time of vehicle sale. So I believe it's going to be more of a collaboration between the OEs and the insurers than the OEs as we know it today, getting into insurance on their own. I don't think they want to be in the claims business, to be very candid. I just don't think so.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Well, there's a lot to digest here. And as always, we'll send everybody a copy of the recorded presentation. So you can go back and refer to it. And I'll send you Frank's contact information on the slide here as well. And I'd like to thank you, Frank, for taking the time out today. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for past webinars. And we appreciate your comments and your thumbs up if you like it. Take care,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody. Thanks, Melissa. Have a great rest of the week.
You too.